on in. You've been invited to InGroove, music podcast show that focuses on discussions of what else but music. Everything from the bestsellers to the unknowns, and everything in between. Today, I am joined by my co-hosts Dan Griffin.
Yeah.
And Ben King.
Here we are.
And I am Jarrod White, your host. And we're back with Album Recommendations Volume 3.
We're glad to have Ben back. It's been a little while.
Yeah, I'm back.
And
in the New York groove.
So, like I've explained the last two times, if you didn't catch those episodes, this is basically when each one of our hosts recommends an album for the other two.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan recommended an album for Ben and I recommended an album for Ben and Dan, and Ben recommended an album for Dan and I.
Mm-hmm.
So basically everyone...
You'll get it once you hear it.
Everyone has two albums to talk about.
Yeah.
And we're going to go around in a circle, and we're going to talk about them and see if our opinions stack up or if we have some discrepancies. And maybe if we have a debate, the third person can be a
Referee.
referee.
Okay.
We'll get the black and white shirt on and everything. Pull
Make
out
sure
the
no-
flags.
Make
The
sure
whistle?
there's no elbows going on, no shots to the chin, nothing below the belt. Fuck you!
Unless it's funny, then you can go below the belt.
Fuck you, your music sucks. So, because last time, the last two times Ben kicked it off once and Dan kicked it off once, I'm reluctantly going to kick it off this time with my recommendation.
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly.
Reluctant.
I like to let you guys go first, but this time I'm going to go first.
Okay.
So, I'm taking it with my recommendation from Dan, which was Chuck Berry. His 1964 LP, St. Louis to Liverpool.
Yes.
This is a classic Chess Records rock and roll album.
One of the best in my book.
I just have to say before I do anything, Chuck Berry is still alive, 87
and
years
kicking.
old, still kicking.
I thought he passed away.
Go, 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 Johnny, indeed.
Wow.
Go Chuck.
Go Chuck, go, go Bobby Soxer. I have to say, I enjoyed this a lot. Some of my favorite songs, I like the opener, Little Marie, really groovy kind of song. Very similar to Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
But very classic.
We were talking about this earlier. He tends to recycle a lot of the same chord patterns and
Yep,
stuff
definitely.
and just puts a new set of words to it, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, but I like that. It was a good opener. Kicked things off well. I liked No Particular Place
Me
to
too.
Go. It was a really good
Me too.
song. I love the whole like rhythm in this type of song that gives it like a good momentum, like a good forward motion. Really catchy melody. I loved his vocal performance on this song. Very like he totally got into he got me into it. Into this
Yeah.
I like You Never Can Tell. I like that song a lot.
That's the song in Pulp Fiction where Uma Thurman and John Travolta are doing the dance.
I love the
That's a
story
classic.
of the song about like this couple trying to make ends meet, and at the end they're just like, let's go down to New Orleans, celebrate our anniversary. You know, it's kind of like a life goes on type of song.
Yeah.
Really catchy. I like the little bit of horns thrown in through it. I love the piano solo.
Me too. Me too.
Piano solo is this very jaunty kind of ragtime sort of like sort of thing going on. You know. And I love his version of the old Guitar Slim tune, Things I Used to Do, which I've always loved that song. I love the version of that song that Stevie Ray Vaughan does on Can't Stand the Weather.
Yeah.
And this is a good version too. You know, typical sort of mid-tempo bluesy, you know, guitar solo type song.
Yeah.
And I think all those songs or most of those songs are on the A side. The B side is more mellow, but I enjoyed it a lot too. It had some instrumentals on the B-side.
Yeah.
Some sort of like slow, sort of like, you know, some slow dance songs. You take your girl out and, you know, cop feel maybe and, you know, enjoy some Chuck Berry. You know, that was sort of, you know, I might have just preferred the A-side slightly because it was more like a showcase of Berry at his best, doing what he does best. But I like the B-side too. It was a bit different, changed it up.
I will say this, the Christmas song on there completely throws it off.
I don't know if it completely throws
Merry
off.
Christmas, baby. Yeah.
It was an okay song. I mean,
Yeah.
thematically, I don't think it really fit, but it's not like this is a concept album.
No,
it's just sort
that's true.
of a lot of tunes that Berry had lying around that he sort of threw together. You know, I didn't think it interrupted things too much. It wasn't one of the best tracks on here, but I didn't mind it, you know. But just his performance throughout, very effortless, you know. In my notes, I wrote perfect Sunday afternoon cruising or cookout music. It's just sort of like hanging out, you know. And this is just like the kind of music you want to have on. It's just, you know,
makes you feel good.
Yeah, it's feel good music. And but I wanted to say something particular about the song "Go Bobby Soxer."
Yeah, just the title.
Because if anyone knows Chuck Berry, or even if you don't know Chuck Berry, you know the song "Johnny Be Good." This is almost the same exact song down to a T. Well, yeah. Except instead of Johnny Be Good, it's Bobby Soxer. And the chorus is even "Go, go, Bobby Soxer, go."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, is it sort of like a parody? Is Bobby Soxer Johnny Be Good's cousin or something?
Yeah.
This is like his song.
I want to know the story behind this one.
Yeah, who is Bobby Soxer? Give us a Wikipedia link in the comments to tell us who Bobby Soxer. What is this song all about? Is it a joke or like a wink or a sort of like, did you catch this? A reference to my old...
Yeah. Well, I think he did the same thing with Little Marie.
Yeah, but that one, you know, he changed up the lyrical content of it. It was a little different.
Yeah.
The melody was a little... This song was very, very... Like, the opening guitar riff. Same
riff.
A
lot of his songs do that kind of style. But
I don't know, just the similarity of the chorus with the go, 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 Bobby Soxer.
Maybe it was a parody. Maybe it was like a parody of it.
I feel like it was because he already knew how big Johnny B. Good was. Like,
Bobby Soxer.
Like, and it's such a goofy kind of name. It's way less cool than Johnny B. Good.
Yeah, Johnny B. Cool is like the cool guy you always want to hang out with. It's cool. Bobby Soxer.
That's what it says.
I'm gonna break your glasses or something.
Yeah, it's like Johnny B. Good's less cool cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this album. It brought me back to the good old days, you know, sort of like Chess Records, just like classic.
Yeah. This was the first album he did after he was in jail for a little while.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think he just got out and he was like,
well, I have a bunch of songs.
I gotta just, I have all these songs lying around. I gotta just lay them down and like prove to people I'm back and I'm doing what I've always been doing. I'm just, you know.
And it was very successful.
Grade A, yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than that. I give it, out of 5, I give it a 4. I give it a 4 out of 5. It was a very enjoyable listen. So just like...
Good, I'm glad you liked it.
Short, concise, sweet, to the point. Mm-hmm. You know, all the punchlines intact. It was just sort of like something to put on.
So all you listeners, go Bobby Soxer.
Go Bobby Soxer. Go Bobby Soxer.
Sobby Boxer.
Robbie Boxer.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
we could go on with that.
Boxers. Yeah, speaking of boxers, we're going to Ben with his recommendation from me.
Alright, so I got recommended Daniel Johnston's Hi, How Are You?
Hi, how are you?
Released in 1983. This is a lo-fi indie album. It's very raw, it's very unclean.
Recorded in a garage in Austin, Texas on a $50 recorder.
That's what I was going to ask.
And a toy organ.
I had to ask because I'm listening to this. I'm like, I don't know what they used. And I was so confused. Well, I started listening to it on YouTube and I'm like, wow, this is a really bad audio on YouTube. So I clicked on another link. It was the same thing. I'm like, oh, so this is what it sounds like. I'm like, all right. So I get more into it. I'm torn between if I find it amusing or if I find it really, really annoying. I don't know. I can't figure it out. I'm torn between. I like his voice being this like goofy, amusing kind of thing. It put a smile on my face, but after a while, I'm just like, I can't do a whole. I think it clocks in at like 30 minutes. I can't do like a whole 30 minutes of his voice in that toy organ. I couldn't. I finished it. I did. But after a while, I'm like, I don't know if this is even amusing anymore. I found it just...
Wow.
I just found it a little annoying after a while. I'm just like, yet again, this is something way out of my comfort zone. And it was completely new to me. I didn't know what to make of this. But my first reaction was just it's really, really funny and really, really dumb at the same time.
Lovely.
I did like it though. Yeah. I did like it.
I do like the cover.
Yeah,
it looks like the guy from Real Monsters that holds his eyeballs. You guys remember that show?
Yeah,
it looks very much like it.
It's like
so if you want a little nostalgia from 90s Nickelodeon show, so
But
Sorry.
I found his lyrics like I liked his lyrics a lot.
His lyrics are amazing.
I really liked it. Every song told like this really peculiar story. I'm trying to think of the one that. Oh, I'm trying to think. Oh, I'll Never Marry. That it's like 23 seconds and then it goes on to Get Yourself Together and all that kind of stuff. All of it just it blended well together with his lyrics and everything. That I was really enjoying. That's what I wanted to stick around with. I liked his lyrics and everything. His voice, like your first run through, it's a little much to get used to for me. I don't know what it was. It was probably just like the recording and the way it was recorded and whatnot, and just hearing all this really raw and very unclean sounds. I wasn't used to it. I haven't listened to something like this. So, I think for a starter, it was definitely really interesting, and I definitely want to hear like more of it. But I'm still torn between if I find it really amusing or really, really dumb. I don't know. I'm leaning more towards I find it entertaining. I'm leaning towards that.
What I'll say about Daniel Johnston is he's an artist who sort of gets overshadowed by his music gets overshadowed by him and the story behind the creation of these early tapes, which he recorded himself in either his parents' house or when he moved to Austin, Texas, and he was living with his brother, I think, which is where he recorded Hi, How Are You and Yip, Jump Music and some of the others. And he used to just record these tapes and just bring them places and give them to people, friends or just people he met. If you watch the documentary The Devil and Daniel Johnston, that's about him and his sort of story. There's stories where he just sort of walked into a business and said, "Hi, I'm Daniel Johnston, and this is my music. Give it a listen," and then just left. Mm-hmm. And some of the people I would imagine put it on or never put it on, and just, oh, this is crap. But then other people, sort of some of his biggest proponents are people who met him in that way and put it on and said, "Holy shit, who is this guy and how is he writing such incredible songs?" But like I was saying, I think he gets overshadowed by this sort of story and the fact that he's had a very, very difficult life and all the problems he's faced throughout his life. And, he is someone who suffered from mental illness for, his whole life. But I think that really overshadows the actual music, which is this great sort of raw and, personal pop music. On this, I recommend this album in particular because I think it's a good introduction to his music because it's just sort of concise, only 30 minutes long, it's short, it's accessible, and it has a good variety of stuff. It doesn't just have the toy organ songs. There's some songs where he's playing guitar, there's some piano songs, there's 2 songs where he sings along with an old orchestral jazz LP that he had that are very interesting experiments.
Cool. I like that.
And then there's some a cappella pieces, there's some spoken word stuff, there's some tape, sound collage type tape experiments.
I love one of the last 2, Keep Punching Joe and No More Pushing Joe Around. Those were probably my 2 favorites. Like right at the end, I love those. That was my 2 favorites.
Keep Punching Joe.
I love how they like right next to each other.
Those are so much fun.
Keep punching. All right, no more pushing him around. All right, hold on.
Yeah, he personifies himself a lot as this boxer named Joe. A lot of his lyrics are about this boxer, and he has these recurring themes. The more you listen to him, the more you find he has these recurring themes that come up in his lyrics. He talks about funeral homes a lot. He uses the word grievances a lot. He talks about boxers. There's just these sort of, these themes. And in his artwork as well, there's always the boxer he draws who usually has a hole in his head, top of his head. He draws eyeballs a lot for some reason. I see a lot of eyeballs. He just has like a brand to him, and it just is totally coincidental. It just is what his expression funneled into. But the point I was trying to make is that he gets his actual music gets so overshadowed by this sort of debate that's raging about whether he's a genius or just this guy with some serious issues who had a toy organ that people are fascinated with in some morbid kind of way. And I've never felt that. I've always loved his music, really related to it. And like, for example, I think it's the third track on this album, Walking the Cow, is hands down one of my favorite songs of all time. I love this song, just everything about it, the organ, the way his voice complements it, the kind of modified structure of the pop song that's going on. It's a really interesting sort of take on the verse-chorus structure. And I don't know, I think this album, even more so than any of his others, flows very nicely. You know, there's recurring elements throughout it. Those last few tracks talking about the boxer, like, I don't know, it just comes, it's a perfect package for me. Yeah. And it's a good introduction to Daniel Johnston, which is why I recommended it. The other good introduction to Daniel Johnston is not an album he did, but an album that a friend of his, Kathy McCarty, did, called Dead Dog's Eyeball, which is a series of covers of some of her favorite of his songs, done in a more accessible or mainstream style. They're, you know, produced in a more professional manner. You know, her voice is, you know, a lot more traditional and just sort of more traditional, you know, alternative rock or pop instrumentation to it. And so if you want to really hear how these songs are, you know, really brilliant, but you're getting, you know, frustrated by, you know, just the pure aesthetics of some of his recordings, I think that album's a good way to get around to it. But I think he's just such a good songwriter and lyricist.
Very, very interesting. Like I said, I'm leaning more towards amusing the more and more I think about it. Like, the more I go back to it and think about what I heard and everything, I'm like, this is really amusing and entertaining and everything. So now hearing more about it, I think I might have to go back to Hi, How Are You, but also the other stuff that he's done too.
Yeah, I'd say...
really get more of a feel. Like, if I just stop right at it, I think with an artist like this, if you stop just with one album, you won't get, like, what... if you just stop right there, you won't get to appreciate everything else he's done. Because it sounds like he's got such a unique flair to him that he should be listened to more and more, and maybe gradually get to really appreciate what he does.
Yeah, I'd say definitely, if at least you have the faintest interest in, you know, this is to both Ben and to anyone, if you have even the faintest interest in having heard a little bit, you know, try a few of his albums and try ones from different time periods. Go back, his first album, Songs of Pain, is really good, but some of his newer albums, like Lost and Found, are really good as well, and they're different. And then, you know, if you sort of like his stuff, I think the documentary, The Devil and Daniel Johnston, is a really well-made film, and it gives you a good overview of, you know, the story behind the making of these albums and sort of some more material to approach them and some more knowledge with which to, you know, absorb them into your consciousness, you know. But I would say start, if you've never heard any Daniel Johnston before, start just fresh.
This feels like the
listening to an album, and the one I would recommend is Hi, How Are You? It's probably my favorite, but yeah, that's what I have to say about Daniel Johnston. I like him a lot.
I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5. This is a for an artist like this I can feel like this is the more accessible one of the other stuff that he's done. So this is a good introduction, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of him. I really am.
Yeah, I really like this album. I've heard it a bunch of times. I'd probably give it a 4, but it's sort of arbitrary. It's one really close to my heart. I really like it.
Yeah.
So, but if we're moving along, we're going to Dan.
We are, yeah.
And Dan's going to talk about the album that was recommended to him by Ben.
Okay, so Ben recommended me this jazz album from 1966. It's by Cannonball Adderley. Jazz saxophone. Saxophonist.
More of an alto guy, yeah.
The album is called Mercy, 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 Live at the Club. I gotta say, I liked this album a lot.
Yeah.
I love the it has a lot of energy. There's a lot of pep to it. I've always liked the song "Mercy, Mercy, Mercy."
Yeah.
I didn't realize
very real.
I didn't realize he actually wrote it, and then the Buckinghams later did it and added words to it. Because I knew that version obviously, and I've always loved that song.
Yeah,
and I've always heard people do that. That's a very common jazz standard.
Yeah.
Do 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 do. Boom! But yeah, energy.
It's just such a great hook, just a great song. Overall, great album.
Well, you're slightly misled. It wasn't written by Cannonball Adderley. It was written by Joe Zawinul, but Cannonball
for some
Adderley
reason
was the first person to do it.
He was.
All right.
That's okay.
I think he was the first. You were right.
Yeah, he's the first person. It was a song written for the Cannonball Adderley Quintet.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it was overall a really good album. I'm not into jazz as much as Ben or Jarrod, but I do like it.
That's why I knew this one was
good introduction. If you guys haven't, if you guys haven't listened to a lot of jazz, I think this is a good place to start, in my opinion. I mean, through listening to it, I kind of felt like I was in the audience, and I was like, fly on the wall. I was like, oh wow, this is.
It's got a very loud audience presence on it. It's not one of those live albums where it sounds like in the studio. You can hear the crowd throughout.
He's always having some kind of conversation right before the start of the song, and you feel just like an audience.
Yeah, he puts the music puts you at ease, and overall I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah,
it was a good album.
But it's music that you would expect at the club. It goes from upbeat to
maybe not clubs nowadays. You hear techno,
right? Okay, but back then in the '60s,
definitely.
Like a club like that, that's what you wanted to go to hear. You wanted to hear some kind of jazz. Start off with fun, and then games, which is more of like a hard bop jazz kind of stuff. But then you go into Mercy, 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 and Sack of Woe, stuff like that, where it's more
people enjoying some jazz.
Yeah,
cigarettes.
exactly. That they start you off as the energy, but then they kind of want to calm you down, to get some drinks into you and everything, and have a good time in the club.
Absolutely.
Not really dancing to a beat, just relaxing. That's what they did back then. That was their thing. They just wanted everyone to relax, take it easy, and forget about the troubles of their days. Just listen to Cannonball Adderley.
Yeah. Overall I would give it a 4 out of 5. So good recommendation.
Solid live stuff.
Yeah.
There.
So that is Cannonball Adderley.
Yeah.
The album is Mercy, 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 live at the club, not the club, but the club. And it was recorded in 1966.
I give this a 4.5 out of 5. I just thought it was
not the club.
The club
live at the club.
The club.
50 Cent makes a cameo. Yo, Cannonball, my man.
He reissues it. He photoshops his head right next to Cannonball. And this is my thing now. I'm sampling. Oh boy.
All right, so on to Jarrod.
Okay, this is my second recommendation. This was a recommendation from Dan.
Excuse me.
The album is from 2012. It is The Second Law by Muse. Okay. Before I get into this album, I gotta say my stance with Muse. Okay, I first heard Muse in 2006. I got Black Holes and Revelations when that came out.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to them. And immediately went and got their older albums, none of which I liked as much. And still today, Black Holes and Revelations is definitely my favorite.
And if you've heard the show before, you guys know Black Holes is my top 5. Still is in my top 5 favorite albums ever.
Yeah, it's an album I like a lot. It's not a perfect album, but it's more interesting moments like Nights of Sidonia, Take a Bow, Map of the Problematique. Are songs I really like, and it putting it in perspective of their discography, it was sort of them. I found getting their own sound, sort of, getting very idiosyncratic in their own way. This was, there's still moments on it, good moments like Starlight that sounds, like something U2 could have done, down to a T.
Or there's songs that on the radio,
Yeah, and there's songs that sound sort of like Radiohead and There's those Queen-esque moments, though they were a bit more subdued on that album than some of their others. But I've never liked any of their other albums anywhere near as much as that one. I do like Origin of Symmetry.
Origin of Symmetry is really good. I like Absolution quite a bit. I like the Resistance, which is before Second Law, and that's really good. I'm not crazy about Showbiz, so Showbiz is alright. That's like the...
Yeah, I'll give them a pass for that because it's their first one. I'm not crazy about it, but whatever.
It's alright, though.
But I've never been crazy about Absolution, but Origin of Symmetry is alright. But Black Holes and Revelations is definitely my favorite, the one I like. Pretty good album. And was The Resistance the next one?
Yep.
Heard The Resistance when it came out. Thought it was okay.
I thought it had like this really cool sound to it. I always think with Muse, on the album it sounds fine, good, but I bet you when you see them live and everything, that's where they like go crazy with their lights, their techno stuff. They probably put on an amazing sound.
Yeah, I'm sure the show is fun. I mean, I liked the Resistance all right when it came out, but I listened to it recently and I don't know.
Doesn't really do it for you as much as it
doesn't
did
really
the
do it
first
to me.
time.
It feels like a huge step backwards, and not even a step backwards to say like Origin of Symmetry, but a step backwards to like them trying to bring back symphonic rock or something. And it's sort of embarrassing almost because there's so many moments on it that just sound like pure Queen worship. And what I'll say about this, the thing about Queen, I'm not a crazy Queen fan, but I like Queen and I don't have a problem with Queen. But they have these huge bombastic moments, but they always balance them with a more down-to-earth sort of rock song or, pop moment.
Yeah.
Like, take, for example, off of, Night at the Opera, which is one of their best albums. The A-side ends with Seaside Rendezvous, and the B-side starts with probably their most epic song, the Prophet song. It's this good balance between, them retaining the sort of just rock and roll flavor, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and then they'll do The Game, which is a more sort of bombastic, like fist-pumping rock epic.
Yeah.
I like that balance, but on The Resistance, there was no Seaside Rendezvous. There wasn't even You're My Best Friend. There was no pop moment on it. There was no...
I Want to Break Free or something. Yeah.
Or putting it in Muse's perspective, there was no Starlight. There was no Invincible. There was no, like, just sort of pop song. It was just sort of bombast after bombast. And one, it gets very tiresome. And two, it's just so done in such a goofy manner. And it seems so overly serious.
But I feel like when you go from, like Black Holes to Resistance to Second Law, I feel like and I think just from the first album itself, every album, they're trying something new. That, to me at least, they're trying something new. They're trying something different from themselves. And
but they're not really trying something new. They're trying something
like for
old.
themselves. I mean, like for themselves, they're trying something new. It's not like music wise. We've heard this before, but like for themselves, they're trying something new, which I like and don't like. I don't like it because they don't really have like an actual identity to themselves because they change with their music so much. They don't. They really don't change. They really don't. They have an identity, but it's just an identity that's sort of like a postmodern mishmash of sounds that they like. It's just sort of a bit of Radiohead here, a bit of U2 there, a bit of Queen here, a bit of symphonic 60s soundtrack here. Yeah.
And I don't know, that album, The Resistance, just felt like a sort of mixed bag of, mediocre takes on old styles to me. Just sort of like, okay, what kind of modern production can we put on this to make it sound fresh? So you have these very sort of tired, sounding electro moments on it, and these sort of like synthesizers that sound very cheap and late 2000s.
I like those sounds though. I always thought they were like so like I found them like really interesting. They sound really cool to me. I don't know that's always something I've always really dug. That kind of electronic symphonic sound to them. I've always liked that concept. That's what I dug.
I compare them to they do sound a lot like Radiohead at times, and I'll compare them to Radiohead, which is a band haters get your pitchforks, but I don't like. But Radiohead to me, going back to like an album like OK Computer, okay, that everyone says is this great revolutionary album. It sounds so of its time to me. It sounds so much like an album that was made during that time when it came out.
Late 90s or whatever.
Yeah, the production of it, the sort of songwriting, the alternative rock with a bit of electronic influence. It's like, I think that album came out in 97, you know.
Yeah.
There was so much more interesting stuff going on that was sort of finding its own niche. Like, take for example, I think the Bowie album Earthling came out the same year, and that's sort of a fusing of electronic music with rock music that's seems much more adventurous, because who would have expected David Bowie, of all people, to sort of do a drum and bass, electronic thumping sort of electronica infused rock album? And when with Bowie it does it, it sounds epic. It sounds like he's going out on a limb. Mm-hmm. Like, for once, he seemed like a true musical chameleon. That sort of moniker that's always been put on him. Yeah. You know, sometimes in a bit of an overstatement, but that really felt like him, you know, stepping out and actually adopting all these sounds and tailoring them to his own style.
Plus, Daft Punk was around that time too.
Yeah, Daft Punk doing much better electronic pop music. You know, Radiohead just seemed, going back to it, just seems so of its time, and it seems so, you know, 90s in a way that's sort of passé. That, you know, like, I'll toot its horn all day, but like something like the New Radicals album doesn't. That sounds very idiosyncratic. It sounds very
timeless.
You know, out of that time. It's a 90s album, but it sort of carved its own niche.
Especially with what main guy's name, can't think of his name.
Greg Alexander.
Greg Alexander. All of his lyrics, every single song, every single lyric is so well written. It's so perfect.
Yeah, but we're going on tangent.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could talk about that.
You know, Muse to me sounds like Radiohead in that respect, that they sound very of their time.
Yeah. Now,
I will say their earlier stuff was sort of a bit, you know, different than what was going on. It sounded old. You know, it was... I could group them in with a band like Wolfmother or stuff, or like the Black Keys.
Yeah.
This new wave of old, you know, dad rock, garage rock, you know, old pop, you know, 60s music, sort of 70s Queen bombast. Like, let's bring back that old stuff. You know,
exactly.
I'd rather hear something that's new, but at the end of the day, I can't really complain about that too much, because if they're going for that and that's what they sound like, you know, they're pulling it off.
Yeah.
So I like those Muse early albums, okay, because they sort of pull that off, and that wasn't... They didn't sound like 2003 pop music when they were doing a 2003 album. But now, their sound is becoming such a mishmash of styles that on The Resistance, for the first time, they really felt like they were, you know, tailoring themselves to 2010 or whenever that album came out. 2009 maybe. It just sounded like, you know, 2009 electropop had got together with Queen and Radiohead and U2 and tried to make a new album. It's like when U2 makes a new album now. It's a joke. It's like...
Yeah, no one's going to listen to U2.
It's like when U2 did Zooropa, they not only jumped the shark, but they jumped the shark all the way, you know, into another country. It was like, what happened? It became like a farce, like a parody, because... I don't know. I will say this. When a rock and a pop band tries to do an electronic album, I'm doing air quotes right
now.
It's
taking a big risk.
Yeah.
It's taking a big risk, but they never actually take the risk. It drives me nuts. Like, that Bowie album sounds really, like, sort of adventurous and different from his old stuff. Whereas, you know, Muse, U2, when U2 does Zooropa, it just sounds like the same old U2 stuff, but with cheaper and less fitting production. It just sounds like a cash grabber, sort of like attempt to jump onto a new style. Listen to, you know, Primal Scream, Screamadelica, to see how this style, how this sort of approach to outside influences can make pop music better.
Yeah.
But for something like U2 doing Zooropa, it's embarrassing to listen to. Or I'll give Radiohead props. When they did an electronic album, when they did King of Limbs, I wasn't crazy about it. It had a few good songs, but at least it was an electronic album. I'll give it that. Okay, we're finally getting to this actual album.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
this actual album, Muse, The Second Law. Okay, so not crazy about Resistance. There's a few songs on it that I think you can pull out and sort of redeem because they're catchy enough, or they sort of have enough interesting things.
The big one, Uprising.
Yeah, which really annoys the piss out of me because it's annoying, but it's an okay song, I guess. That's sort of one of the ones where the elements come together the best. But, okay, so I go into the second law thinking, okay, you know, I had some knowledge about it, knowing it was incorporating electronic sounds, and it was sort of a more mainstream album.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, maybe Muse is gonna, you know, take a left turn, gonna change their style, and maybe that's what the backlash is about. Maybe they have adapted to a new style, and they've, you know, ticked off the fan base, because that's happened before.
You don't sound like Muse anymore. That was the huge complaint from people when this came out. Like,
yeah,
this isn't Muse anymore.
So I went into this album sort of hoping, okay, maybe they'll, you know, change enough that they sort of forge a new style for themselves, and it's sort of a departure. And I thought, I went in a little tentative, but that was sort of my hope, my biggest hope for the album, that maybe they would accomplish that.
Yeah.
Boy, they didn't. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, this is still another album where they
sound just like Muse.
Yeah.
They have not changed a lick. It's the same stuff. It's the same exact stuff. Some of these songs sound so much like their other songs. It's laughable. Like what song is it? Explorers. It sounds just like Invincible. It sounds just like Invincible, but dragged out longer, more sappy, more melodramatic, more cheesy, more cheap sounding, more electronic for no good reason. If you're going to incorporate these new sounds, you have to tailor your songwriting to it. You can't just do the same old stadium epic rock song with the vocals and just put like a behind it. It just makes no fucking sense.
Yeah. And then Follow Me sounds like something that came off of
Follow Me. That sounds like Lady Gaga doing "I Will Survive" with Thom Yorke singing over it. That's what it sounds like. It's like, it's a joke. It's embarrassing. Okay, this album starts off with this song "Supremacy," which, okay, it's good enough, but it sounds like the James Bond theme got cut up and put in the background.
I like
and
these analogies.
It makes no sense. I'm listening to this song. It's this Queen infused
such a cool
YouTube radio rock epic with these James Bond strings in the background.
Wait for like guns to come out.
And it's so awkward and kind of, I don't know, but
I like that
it's
beginning.
Catchy. It's catchy, so I'm like, okay, I'll give that one a pass. Then we come to the next song, which makes me want to fucking blow my brains out.
I like Madness.
It's called Madness, and
it's the big
for
one
the
on the radio,
first 3 minutes of the song.
Starlight.
For the first 3, no, it's not.
Well, like
for the first 3
down
minutes of the song, it's. This
sounds horrible.
This is like the super toned down
for
Starlight.
3 minutes, and then Matt Bellamy going, "We will survive. We will survive." It's like every Muse song is like, "We will fight," or "We will overcome," or "We will survive," or "We will be invincible."
I always think like every album
it's a cliche.
It always sounds like every album they're fighting some like new alien or something.
It's some unknown fight they're fighting. They'll never tell us what they're fighting about. It's just they're fighting.
Every album cover, it always looks like this weird futuristic
diabetes.
Okay, wow, that's weird. But anyways, like every album looks like this futuristic thing. They're always fighting some kind of like unknown entity, alien thing. They're just always like, "We're gonna be okay. We're gonna fight."
So I hate. No, I'm not done yet.
Yeah,
I hated Madness. Panic Station comes along. It's
like a Michael Jackson.
It's like electro funk. I hated it.
Come on, that one's cool.
It's like if you're gonna do electro funk, make it funky. This sounded like, I don't know, Buster Poindexter doing electro funk, but that was like a parody project.
See, like I'll give you okay with like Madness, because Madness is like, okay, fine. That's the one I skip over when I listen to
Our House.
I like Panic Station though. That's like, I like that funky feel to it. I like his vocals on that a lot.
It's so bad.
I don't know. That song, that sounds so really cool.
And then they have the pretense to do a prelude to a song.
It's a little pretentious.
It's like, why do you need a minute and a half long prelude
like
to a 4-minute pop song? And then the song comes along. It's called Survival. We will be survival. Whatever the fuck they're singing about. And it is so melodramatic. And the backing vocals in this song...
It tries to be a bombastic song.
It is so goofy. It is so... The backing vocals are like... And I'm like, what is happening? It's like everything is collapsing around me and it's... I don't understand. It's so bad. It sounds like a joke. Are they... But it's not self-aware enough to be a joke. It's not like they're being goofy because Matt Bellamy's vocals are so over-serious and so sort of like drawn out and like epic and like we're singing about some great cause
and then bombastic
and then in the background it's
epic.
The most goofy sort of quasi-operatic backing vocals.
Very staccato.
Really staccato.
Then there's the electro version of "I Will Survive" I talked about. The only song on here I kind of like is "Animals." It's
that's the one I think that is kind of like mediocre. I'm just like,
that's by far the best song. By far the best song. It has a bit of atmosphere to it. It has a sort of build from the beginning to end that isn't like so cheap and just like, we got to get this song progressive. Just layer on a bunch of bad synths and cheap string synthesizers in the last minute and do a key change and it'll sound like, this song actually has some sort of natural progression to it. It has some nice guitar work. It's definitely the best song on here.
I like Big Freeze a lot.
My god.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's awful. It's awful. I can barely get through it. It's so boring. It's so stagnant.
It's like one of the last
Big Freeze is a good title because it's like all the music got frozen and is just standing in the same place. Nothing happens for the whole song.
The last two, the instrumental ones, it was like the piano ones. And then it goes into dubstep real quick all of a sudden.
I haven't even gotten to that.
Okay, I was gonna say that's bad. That's sloppy, messy, really idiotic work. I was just like, what the hell happened?
Let me get into it.
Because
the last two songs are the title track. It's like two parts of the title track. They have
the second law.
They have stupid, pretentious.
The second law, isolated system.
Yeah, they have pretentious subtitles or whatever.
Yeah.
And this sounds like something made on a computer in 45 minutes, so cheaply, like sampling news audio that has nothing to do with anything.
I don't know if this was the reason behind it, but they do the music for World War Z, and that's what plays during the credits. And you hear the news stories about the zombie outbreaks. I don't know if that's what the reason they putting it into the album, but I'm like, that's weird. That's a weird decision. I'm not crazy about that, but that's my only explanation.
This is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say, dubstep. We have to talk about this for a second.
this one is the sloppiest on the album. It's sloppy. It's messy. It doesn't fit.
This came out 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2012. Okay. This is what
October.
Okay, hold on. This is what I have to say about dubstep. Dubstep has been around for 15 years, at least. What people talk about when they talk about dubstep, I'm doing the air quotes again, is a very particular subgenre of the genre. If you want to hear dubstep, listen to Shackleton or listen to Burial. Listen to Burial's album Untrue. It sounds so totally different than what is actually called bro step, which is what, Skrillex or whatever. I don't even want to talk about that stuff.
Oh yeah, that thing.
That is bro step, which is this
that hasn't gone on my nerves.
This very loud, abrasive, and overemphasized and dramatic version of sort of the dubstep roots. And I've never understood why people refer to that as dubstep because it sounds nothing like dub. I don't know. Whereas listen to Burial, listen to Untrue, you hear those dub reggae influences. You hear the kind of shuffle and the heavy bass influence. Those bass the bass wobbles are taken right from dub music, from old Jamaican fucking dub records. So on this album, Muse has bro step wobbles.
It's weird.
Come in at the most random times.
It's really bad. It's very bad.
And then they couple them with Matt Bellamy's typical soaring, Yorkian Radiohead vocals, and it sounds like, I don't even know. It sounds like a parody. It sounds like a parody of epic music.
It's a big, fat,
and then this
electronic
big,
mess. There's a bunch of wires.
And then this big, long, stagnant piano
that doesn't go
thing
anywhere.
that goes nowhere and just repeats over and over again with this stupid news footage samples that have nothing to do with anything. And then the album just ends. And
which is weird because if you put it as a video, maybe it would sound. If you just listen to it on your headphones, you're like, am I supposed to see something right now? I'm waiting for something to happen. And you're trying to piece together this weird story that they want to try to convey to you, but you're not really interested. I was never interested in whatever was happening on Earth or whatever planet Muse lives on or whatever. I was never interested on the end. I never was. That's where I started to not like the album.
So what I have to say is, Muse, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they wanted to experiment with these sounds.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't say it's just a cheap cash grab, which it might be, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I at least have a little bit of fondness of them because I like that one record they did 8 years ago.
Yeah.
My fondness is only going to extend so far, but for now, I'll leave it at least a little intact until their next album is just as bad as this, which it might be. If they wanted to do this experiment, they did not go all the way. They went not even halfway. They went 10% on this. They were, lifting their pinky percent on this. It was and then if they really, really wanted to do a bro step electronic album, why did they just not do it? Why did they not?
They wait till the very end.
They could have formed a new band or done a side project under a different name, called it Muse Step or some stupid shit. Yeah. I don't care. At least tell us what it's going to be and do it all out. Don't do this halfway thing.
Don't build up to something I don't know what they were building up to. Maybe they thought they were building up to this bro step thing, but it went downhill as soon as you started listening.
I don't know what they were going for. And whatever they were going for, they didn't get to it. Because listening to this album is it was one of the least satisfying music, album experiences I've ever had. It was, and I listened to it multiple times because I just had to make sure. I just had to make sure that I wasn't, jumping the gun or giving it an unfair shake. I listened to this a few times.
I've heard this many times.
It's so disappointing. I cannot wrap my head around why this is this way and why they would make such boring fucking music.
The end is boring. I find a good majority of it actually cool, and I really dig their sound. Madness, yeah, I can do away with Madness, and 800 billion times it's been playing on the radio when it came out. I'm always gonna like Panic Station, but that prelude thing to Survival, I'm like, why is that even in there? It's very pretentious, very pretentious.
But you guys might like it, so who knows?
But I don't know. This has been getting backlash.
Likes it.
Yeah,
like this.
He made me listen to it.
This guy's backlash.
What's the rate your music average?
2.37, but that's the lowest for them. That's why I'm saying this is the one that got the big backlash. That's why I wanted to see your take on it, because I know you and I could talk about this. I'm sorry, Dan.
No, I just know a few.
We'll get to you. We'll get to you.
It is so faux epic. It is so senselessly melodramatic, and it sounds so depressingly of its time. It already sounds dated.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it last few weeks. It already sounds dated. Like,
Yeah.
what? Summer of 2012? Where'd you come from?
Where'd you go?
Where'd you go, and why couldn't you stay there?
Yeah.
It,
I don't know.
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
and yeah,
So what would you give it?
I have to say, I'm looking forward to their next album. I give it a 3.5. Jarrod?
A 3.5? Really?
Yeah, I thought it was
oh
good. I think
man,
it's good.
like a 1.5 maybe. I could
All
be a
right,
bit,
all right.
I
was
could be
expecting something low.
I could be a bit generous and give it a 1.5 because there's a few songs that are listenable.
Like, yeah.
I mean,
It is what it is,
like.
I knew this one was going to be like an interesting pick to see what your take was. So, even though you didn't like it, I'm glad.
I mean,
that
because
we got this off
if
your
a half star is Broken Side, and then a 1 star is that black metal album that's just the sound of someone masturbating for an hour,
Wow.
then this is a 1.5 star. So
All right, we'll give it a 1.5 for you. Alrighty.
Okay, so on to Ben's.
Wait, what?
On to my recommendation.
From you?
From me. Yes.
Oh yeah, I haven't talked about that yet. All right. So on to me. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So next recommendation was from Dan Griffin to me. I got the Byrds album, the Notorious Byrd Brothers, released in 1968.
Yeah.
Question: who was supposed to be that guy that the horse is at? Because I know someone left.
David
right?
David Crosby from
Yeah.
Crosby, Stills and Nash was
Yeah,
in the Byrds, and he left halfway through the album.
So they're
Or
basically
fired.
calling him like a big old jackass in the middle of the album, right there.
I think that's.
Put on a horse or.
I think there was a lot of
How
animosity
dare
in the
you.
group.
But this one I really liked. I really liked I'm trying to think of the first song on there, artificial energy. That was a really strong beginning.
Yeah.
I was really liking it, and it just kept going more and more. One of my favorites, the two Natural Harmony and Draft Morning, especially Draft Morning.
Draft Morning's
when
a
you
nice
hear
song.
like the Nam recordings and everything.
That's a David
I
Crosby
think
track.
both of them were just really strong, solid work. I like the synthesizer work in there. All the guitar work was great. I do have to say, it started going. It went downhill real quick at the end. Was Dolphin Smile, and
I knew you were going to say
weird
that.
Space Odyssey.
Yeah, because the intro of Dolphin Smile is like you hear all this noise, and I'm like, Ben is not going to like this.
I was just like, mate. I saw that
It was like a
song
Daniel
title.
Johnston record or something.
Yeah, but it was like
The cow goes. Whoa.
but I like that part. This part I was just like, well, this didn't have to be.
Well,
there.
you got to remember, this is the late '60s.
I know, but yeah, I understand.
substances
But
around.
like that doesn't mean I'm
Yeah,
not-
and they discovered studio effects.
Yeah, studio effects.
But like, I listened to it. I'm like, well, this didn't have to be in there. And then I'm not crazy about the Space Odyssey.
Yeah, this was
it was
like
a very psychedelic thing.
early stages of space rock.
But
Well,
it didn't.
the
fit in there
Byrds
for
do
me.
that. They always
Yeah.
have one song on those early albums. It's
Mr.
like
Spaceman.
like a weird space thing. Like they have that one song with the really I think it's on Younger Than Yesterday. That with the really fast vocals, like it's like these weird aliens singing.
Uh-huh.
They always have one goofy throwaway song
Right.
like that. I don't think it's supposed to be taken seriously.
No,
it's just
no.
you know.
That's why they put it right at the end.
It's like
no
Monkeys.
one's gonna get there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan of, and I know Jarrod is too, the song from the film Easy Rider called
I
Wasn't Born to Follow.
Yeah,
That's a good.
That's
one.
a
That is
really
good.
good
With the phasing,
Yeah.
it just is, that's like a perfect country rock
Yeah.
song.
this is a really good album, and it's
really
a
is.
really good transitional album because
Yeah.
from Younger Than Yesterday to Sweetheart of the Rodeo, it is such a big 180 in sound.
Well, I think it was a
from-
big 180 from Mr. Tambourine Man to like the Fifth Dimension, even.
Oh, well,
that was a
definitely,
big-
definitely.
you
But
know.
when you go from that jangly sort of pop music to
Country.
pure country rock on Sweetheart of the Rodeo, this is sort of a more folksy approach.
Yeah, there's a little jangle, but it's
No, that's why I'm saying it's a
Jangle.
transitional album, and it's
Yeah.
a good one at that because it doesn't feel like mishmash. It doesn't feel like a Muse album or anything. It feels like a proper product.
It's
in
very-
every
it's
song.
It felt like oh, this is definitely the Byrds' work. This is definitely them.
so good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I really loved all the guitar work. I love the vocals.
Roger McGuinn.
They just sound great. Overall, very, very solid. I loved it, and it's what I've always. I think I've said this before. Definitely have. I love the recommendation thing because like bands that I've always wanted to like
Get into.
Now like the Byrds. I'll go to Younger Than Yesterday and stuff like that.
I love those early Byrd
I'll
records.
finally.
I'm not a huge Sweetheart of the Radio fan.
I like that one.
Like,
not as good as like the early jangly stuff, but
like I'll finally get to it because I'm like, all right, I finally listened to one. And now I'm gonna keep going and listen to more of it and see what happens. Because I know I've always wanted to, but I never have.
Yeah,
that's why I like doing the recommendation shows, because then I'll finally listen to at least one thing from the band. Like when you did Susie and the Banshees for me, I always wanted to get into them. Now I like Susie, but
you don't like the Banshees? Not as much?
just Susie.
Right.
Maybe not the. All right, but the point is,
I hate having to listening to the backing band. I just want the vocals, man. Just give me the vocals.
You're tearing me up. All right,
Susie, you're tearing me apart.
But yeah, Notorious Byrd Brothers. I give this a solid, very solid 4.
Yeah, I would say
This was great.
I think we're all in agreement on that one.
I definitely want to come back to this. And listen to it again. Not Dolphin Smile, but like, like I'll listen to everything. But that
I don't mind
Dolphin
Dolphin.
thing.
I like a nice Dolphin Smile.
It's just there.
Hey, how do you?
It's just there. It doesn't do anything. It's just there. Yeah. It's just
no, really. Like it catches you by surprise.
Oh,
Because you're like dolphins. Oh, okay. And then it's like,
Yeah, I could go with it.
But there's a horse on the album. They're on a barn. You can't have dolphins on a barn.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, fine, whatever.
They took a field day.
They took a field day. But yeah, 4.
Good.
4. I love that.
cool.
We're moving along to our last album.
Yeah. Okay, so I got recommended from my good friend Jarrod White, Beware, by Bonnie Prince Billy.
Yep.
In quotations.
Also known as Will Oldham, his real name.
Okay. I'm going to be honest here. I thought it was mediocre. It's a country album. Country folk
singer-songwriter.
You know, for me, I like, there's certain country there's a lot of different kinds of country, and I'm very picky for what I like with country. I didn't hate this album. I just thought it was okay. I thought they were all pretty solid songs. Nothing really stuck out in my opinion. I liked, you know, the combination of instruments. Like I liked hearing the violin.
Really good instrumentation.
Yeah, I will give them that. But I thought the songs in general, I don't know, it just maybe like I said, sometimes when I hear an album for the first time, I don't quite get it. I don't quite get into it. So, yeah, nothing really stood out. I think they were all pretty solid songs, but, you know, I like I said,
Nothing caught the
nothing really caught the ear, or the ear, or the nose.
You didn't like appreciate his voice, or
no, I shouldn't say that, but you know, it was an acquired taste, I think, because the first time I'm like, okay, I did like the harmonies.
Yeah,
good harmonies.
It was really nice harmonies.
And I did like I said, the instrumentation, but I would give it a 3 out of 5 overall.
Yeah, I really like Bonnie Prince Billy. He's an interesting guy. He does acting as well. He's been in a lot of Kelly Richard's films. Most people say that I See a Darkness is his best album. I don't know if it is. It's just as good as this one. I like this one a lot too. But that one's more sort of somber, more bleak, which is why I recommended this one, because there's a bit more variety of sounds. There's, you know, some more upbeat, some more sunny songs to it, despite the very dark album cover.
Yeah, very dark album cover.
My only real complaint about this album is that my favorite song is I Am Goodbye. Mm-hmm. I really like that song a lot, and I don't know why it's not the last song. Not just because the Goodbye is in the title, but it's like a really good, it leaves you feeling really great. Like the last chord strikes and just gives you a good mood. And then the next song is sort of, I love the next song, Without Work You Have Nothing, but it sort of is like, oh, the album's still going. Yeah. I wish they just shuffled up the track list a bit.
Yeah, that's one thing I agree with you on that.
But I really like his voice. He's this sort of... He always strikes me as sort of like this Appalachian guy who lives in an antique barn and, you know, rides horses and, you know, always has a stick in his mouth that he's chewing on for no reason. He just sort of strikes me as this kind of character, and with his big beard and his voice is sort of this, you know, a little grumbly sort of mountain man type of folky voice. I don't know, it just feels very like rootsy and very like, you know, rootsy.
Yeah, I will say that.
And it's not.
I'll definitely give it another listen.
It's not quite a country album. It's not quite a folk album. It's got like a bit of an Americana sound to it.
Yeah,
even it's sort of like an alt country sort of sound to it. And I love the, like you said, the instrumentation with the fiddles and
the pedal steel, obviously.
Yeah, pedal steel and some flutes and other wind instruments on tracks. It's a very lush sort of, you know, heavily, you know, with the instrumentation is very, you know, sort of lush, and it complements the songs well. And I don't know, I like his songwriting. His lyricism's interesting. I like his voice. I just think he has his own personality to him, and I don't know, I give it a 4 out of 5. I really like it. I've heard it a few times, and yeah, and I like I See a Darkness just as much, which is more of a stripped down sort of singer-songwriter album, a bit more bleak, downbeat. But I like Bonnie Prince Billy. And I don't know, maybe check out some of his other stuff.
Yeah, and I definitely will too. I don't know, I just, nothing really stuck out as a song, you know what I mean? But overall, I mean, it wasn't horrible. Like, I didn't hate it.
It's not like a pop album. It's not like you're going to be like, ooh, that hook's so good. It's like, it's more about like the sort of atmosphere, like the sort of timbre of his voice, the instrumentation, the way the players play off each other, and like the sort of simplicity in the songwriting. It's more of, you know, sort of atmospheric sort of listen than, you know, a more traditional country album, which is, you know, more sweet to the point, sort of.
Right, exactly.
Pop, you know, song, verse, chorus. I mean, this is verse, chorus, you know, pop structured songwriting, but it's not really about that so much. It's about, you know, his voice, the lyrics, the words. It's that's why I would say it's more a folk album than a country album. It's sort of more, it's more Dylan than it is Cash, you know? But that's what I have to say about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so give it a listen. It is Bonnie Prince Billy. The album is called Beware. And it came out in 2009.
Yep.
It's fairly recent, so yeah, give it a listen.
Yeah, we had a lot of recent albums in this.
Of course, mine were from the 60s, my recommendations.
Damn you. No, I'm kidding.
Kind of stuck in the past.
No, we had Mercy, Mercy, Mercy from the 60s.
Yeah.
We had Byrd Brothers from the 60s. We had Daniel Johnston from the early 80s. And then we had
Chuck Berry from the 60s.
And then we had Muse and Daniel Johnston from recent. Yeah, it's sort of a wide breadth.
Eclectic.
But that's the end of this episode, I guess.
Oh.
We've come to the end of another foray into music. If you disagree with me on Muse, I don't care.
If you disagree with any of us,
I don't care.
Yeah, if you disagree with any of us, speak up. We'd like to.
I'd tell Ben he's wrong. That would be nice. And like us on Facebook. Follow my blog. Follow the other blogs. Follow the good blogs. Don't follow the bad blogs. And remember, a good idea is a good idea forever. So, signing off, my name is Jarrod White.
Dan Griffin.
Benjamin Patrick King.
And I hope you enjoyed this episode of InGroove. We will be back at some point to talk about more irrelevant shit.
Take care now.
Goodbye.